Rachel.
Hi, Brittany.
I said that with like a southern twang. I don't know where that came from. I was like, hey, Rachel, I don't know where that came from. Apparently, I'm in the South today. I guess actually I am in the South. I live in Virginia. That is kind of the South, or it is very much the South.
I think so.
Technically, it is. Today, I want to talk about something called delayed gratification. So let's break that down a little bit. We know what delayed means, right? That means something, it doesn't happen right away. There's a little bit of a space in between it. And then gratification. Gratification is like a reward. Think about like gratitude. What are you thankful for? A reward. That's how I kind of remember it. So there's a little word background for you. So what does this mean? I want to talk about a study someone did called the marshmallow study. So there was this child psychologist, and he gave a bunch of 5-year-olds one marshmallow. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you this marshmallow. Now, if you wait 5 minutes before eating this marshmallow, you get 2 marshmallows. And some of the kids could not do it. I'll be honest. As a 5-year-old, I do not think I would have been able to do it. I would have eaten that marshmallow right away.
Right there in front of you.
It's right there. It's so gooey and delicious. So they're eating the marshmallow. But then there were other kids that waited, and they got 2 marshmallows. So in this study, this doctor actually followed these kids throughout their entire life. And what they found is that these kids that waited to get the 2 marshmallows, they actually exhibited more self-control later on in life. Now, I always take psychological studies with a grain of salt because a lot of them have been people are quick to rush to conclusions they wanted to make. The Stanford Person experiment, actually a great one of that it was renowned and people talked about it. And now we're looking back at it, realizing some of the data was fudged. So you can use that as it will. And like, how are they judging the self-control? They're not watching them always, but it was still interesting to make that correlation. So let's think about delayed gratification and self-control. If I was that kid and I had the marshmallow, I can tell you right now, when it comes to food, I have no self-control. I was going to gobble down that marshmallow. That's what's going to happen. I did the thumbs up, and a thumbs up icon just popped up on my screen. That is so weird. Computer technology.
Oh, that's funny.
So the opposite of delayed gratification would be called instant gratification. And I think that's pretty easy to figure out, right? Things come immediately to you. Now, maybe you have a different preference on what you want. Maybe you want instant gratification, and that's fine. But there are the downsides to that, if you will. Let's talk about money. So, Rachel, let's say I get $50 of allowance, and I'm like, that's a big allowance. Let's say I get $5 of allowance, and I'm like, I want to go spend this on some candy because, like I said, no self-control with sugar and sweets. And I go spend that. But my brother, he also gets $5. Now, my brother and I both want a new bike. But he decides he's going to put that $5 aside. And every week, he's going to save those $5 so that he can get a bike. And every week, I take my $5 and I go spend it on candy. Okay, so then months go by. I'll be honest, I don't know how much a bike costs because I don't ride a bike. I have no coordination. But so let's say time goes by, 2 months. I don't know if you can buy a bike for that. But my brother goes and he gets the bike, and I am so just a little bit envious, right? Because I have all these empty candy wrappers and he has a bike. But he got that delayed gratification. I wanted the candy right away. But he was like, no, you know what? I'm going to wait. And now he has this great reward because he was able to wait. And that's not easy, but it's meaningful. Jordan Peterson has this quote, one of his 12 rules for life. And it's pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. And I actually have that framed and on my wall because I think that's really good. So we thrive on something called dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical in your brain. And have you ever, I keep going back to food because I love sugar. Have you ever had a bite of candy and all of a sudden you're just like so excited, not from the sugar rush, but just because you're just like, wow, I feel great. Or have you ever aced a test, got 100%, and there's that feeling of, oh my goodness, look, I'm so accomplished. I've achieved so much. Or have you ever, I'm trying to think of another way you get dopamine. For me, I'm a performer. When I get applause on stage, the dopamine just shoots to my head and it makes me feel elated and it makes me feel really good. Well, there's good dopamine and there's bad dopamine, right? Performing or, achieving on a test, that's great to feel that rush. But then there's also that really quick, what I call cheap dopamine of oh, I ate some candy, so that's happy. People who are addicted to drugs, that's what happens, right? Because they get this cheap dopamine addiction where they need to chase this feeling of feeling elated, and they have to keep doing more and more and more. And so that's how that happens, right? It's this addiction to dopamine, really. So why am I bringing up dopamine? That's kind of the gratification in life, right? We are in search of this thing that makes us feel really elated. And so with Jordan Peterson's quote, what he's saying is, instead of chasing something like a dopamine rush, chase something that's more meaningful. Don't chase that candy. Chase that bike, because you're going to feel better about having this bike that you could have for years, except for this candy that I ate and now it's gone. So I don't know, Rachel, have you noticed times in your life where you've seen this lesson play out, whether for good or for bad? I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry.
Oh no. I mean, for sure. I mean, your example about the bike was basically played out in my own house. I have two sons and they're very, very different. And my older son saved and saved and saved, like you said, and he saved for a gaming computer and he saved like $1,200. It took him like over a year, but he did it. And now the younger son is like really, really jealous because his allowance, actually, he never wanted to do chores, so he didn't get any. But now he's motivated. He sees the reward. Now he's motivated to do some more chores around the house and earn some money. And now he wants to do the same thing. So my older son has set a great example. But I mean, it's like working out at the gym.
I was going to bring that up. That's a great example.
Yeah, like exercise, when you'd rather stay in bed an extra 30 minutes, but you make yourself get up and do this thing. And of course you feel good dopamine afterwards. Exercise is great for your brain chemistry. You always feel better afterwards. At least I do. But that moment when you're in bed and you don't want to go, bed is so comfy, delaying that kind of gratification for the long-term benefits of exercise. That's a good example. Money is another example.
When you can't see the end goal, right? One thing I wish I would have realized when I was our listeners' ages is now when I wake up and I don't want to go to the gym, I actually think like, oh, my long-term health. I don't want to wake up and be 60 or 70 and be frail because I didn't get up today. But when you're younger, you can't really see those consequences. You're not thinking years and years ahead. You're just not. That's just kind of the way it is when you're in adolescence and you're growing up. But you can kind of train yourself to think that way. But when my alarm goes off at 5:30 in the morning, I'm not thinking about like, oh, I can't wait to feel great when I'm 70. I'm thinking like, I just want 10 more minutes of sleep right now. And it's hard to overcome.
Another example would be studying for a test. If you want good grades, you have to delay your video games or whatever else you'd rather do and study for this test so that you can get a good grade. And then when you do earn that good grade, you feel amazing. You feel great. But, you have to give up some things now for a benefit in the future that's more meaningful than just, playing video games. Or whatever it is that you want to do.
This economist, Thomas Sowell, who was great, he had a quote, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. And you reminded me of that because you're always going to have to give up something. It's a matter of when are you giving it up, right? So in the case of the candy and the bike, I can only really choose the candy or the bike in this scenario. I'm giving up one or the other, but it's the time, right? At the moment, I'm like, oh, but I really want this candy. So in the moment, I'm satiating that need. But what am I giving up? The bike later on. And so it is all trade-offs. One way I've kind of hacked my brain to get around this, because I used to be very lazy because of this. I never thought I could be somebody who could get up and go to the gym every day, because that was just, I would do it for a week and then do it again the next year. I wasn't good at that. And now every night before I go to bed, or sometime before, as the day is winding down, in fact, I did it just before we started recording this podcast, I have a journal. And instead of writing my goals for the next day, what I write on the top of the page is, what can I do tomorrow that'll make me feel accomplished for the next day? And that's not super far in advance, but it's still thinking ahead. So I don't set like, what are my goals? What are my checklists? I specifically take my pen and I write, what can I do tomorrow that's going to make me feel accomplished and ready for the next day? And they're really
I might
baby
try
steps.
that.
You know what? I swear by it. It is how I convince myself to get out of bed and walk to the gym in 19-degree weather. I say, yeah, it's real cold. I bundled up. I look like a homeless person with just bundles and layers. But so I put, little things like, first thing is wake up at 6. And then I meditate every morning, or, take my vitamins, these tiny little things. And then I study my French every day. I'm learning French, or I've been learning French for like 15 years, but I'm still doing it. And I'll put like, study your French for 5 minutes, and then, go to the gym, but make sure you're running, this much at this speed. So when I look at that at the end of the day, when I'm going to do the next days, I see all these check marks on these things. And I can actually look at that and think like, this was really hard. I had to give up some instant gratification for this delayed gratification that I feel right now. And honestly, that gives me this rush of wanting to do it the next day. I'm almost like turning it into a game. I've tricked this brain.
You've gamified it.
Gamified that this is really exciting. But I've learned, because I'm such an instant gratification person, because I would have eaten that marshmallow right away, I've had to learn. I know I'm never going to fully not be that way. And so I've had to learn to play to my weaknesses, not play to my strengths, but play to my weaknesses, and find a way to make those work. And so this journal and this thing I do, and you can do that long term. You can say, I do this at the beginning of the year too. I say, how do I want to feel at the end of this year? And what do I need to do to get to there? And there's actually a Chat GPT prompt. You can put that in Chat GPT. You can put where you want to be next year, and then say, make me a schedule of some things I can do to get there. And it will do it. I'm so in love with Chat GPT right now. So there's some really fun ways you can go about this. So I could go on for hours about this, but this is a really important topic to me because it's something I've really had to overcome. But I want you to be mindful of this, during your week, of maybe times that you're choosing instant gratification, or maybe how you want to learn to be better at enjoying the delayed gratification. So maybe talk about it as a family, maybe set some personal goals. I challenge you to do my little journal trick. I think it works great.
I love it. And I love that you talked about the way a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old starts out, and how you would have been the kid that eats the marshmallow. But if that's you, that you're not stuck being that way. You can train yourself to be better, and every day you can work on it. So I love that how you are is not necessarily how you have to stay. You can always get better.
I sure hope not. I think that's the greatest thing in the whole human existence, is that you make the choice to be stuck how you are. You can be whoever you want to be, but it's delayed gratification to get there. It all comes full circle, Rachel. You have to do these little inconvenient, tedious steps to get to that place. So fun topic.
But know that there is gratification at the end, and sometimes
there's so
it's
much
way
gratification
better.
at the end. Yes, so much. Absolutely. This is a really fun topic. I could talk about it for hours, but yes, thank you for listening. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast and share this with your friends. And until next time, Rachel, we will talk to you later.
Talk to you later.